Previously on Unfinished Business.
We're moving on from the 2017 Queensland Under-20 1500 final on to the 2017 Under-20 National 1500 final.
After progressing through his national Under-20 1500 meter heat, FOGDOG took you on his journey through the 2017 Under-20 National 1500 meter final. A disappointing race saw FOGDOG finish in 9th place in 3:57.8 for the 1500 meters. FOGDOG then took you on his journey to the 2017 Oceania Championships, where he won the 5K and came second in the 1500 meters. Episode 2 came to a close in early 2018 at the Open State 1500 meter championships, where FOGDOG worked hard for his first Open State medal, taking second in 3:55.29.
Louis Anthony taking the win and following a great press. That's your first three. The men's Open 1500.
Welcome back to episode 3 of Unfinished Business. For those of you who saw the preview for episode 3 of Unfinished Business on last week's episode, you'll have seen that we're moving on from the 2018 Queensland Open 1500 final to the 2018 Australian Athletics Championships and Commonwealth Games trials that were being held on the Gold Coast in late February 2018. Alright, so all the Australians will know, and if you saw last week's episode, you'll have seen that the 2018 Commonwealth Games were held at the Gold Coast, and the track and field was held in Carrara Stadium, which is about a 45-minute drive from my house. So with the Commonwealth Games being held in April in Australia, it meant that Australia had to have their kind of Open Nationals and Commonwealth Games selection trials earlier than they usually would in February. So after taking the silver medal at Queensland Open States in the 1500 in early February, I gained automatic qualification for the Open Nationals and Commonwealth Games trials that were being held in the Commonwealth Games Stadium in February. So at the time of Open Nationals and the Commonwealth Games trials, I was 19 and my 1500 PB was 3:54.25. So I obviously wasn't expecting to make the Commonwealth Games, but having the opportunity to run at the Australian trials was a great chance for me to get more racing experience against guys who I'd never raced before, guys who were far better than me over 1500, and also it gave me a chance to improve on my PB and have a crack again at that 3:48 World Junior qualifier, as I was running out of time, and Nationals for me, where I had to have that World Junior qualifier by, were in mid-March, and it was late February. I still had a 3:54 1500 and I needed to basically take 6 seconds off it. So I went into the 2018 Australian Athletics Open Nationals and Commonwealth Games trials with not too many expectations, but a couple of big goals, and I really wanted to make the most of this huge opportunity to run fast, run a PB, get more racing experience, and get closer to that 3:48 World Junior qualifier. So when the time came, I turned up at the Gold Coast, and they actually didn't show us the heat sheets until we were warming up. So I was doing my warm-up for the 1500 with no idea who was going to be in my race, and then eventually about 15 minutes before I headed to the call room for my race, my coach told me I was in the second heat of 3, and I had a really hard heat. So in my heat, I had Tom Forthorpe, Geordie Williams, and Ryan Gregson. So some huge names in my race. Ryan Gregson's the Australian record holder for the 1500. He's run 3:31.06 for the distance. And so finding out that I was in Heat 2 with these people definitely made me nervous. But as I mentioned, I was only here to run fast, get a PB, get some more racing experience, and try and get closer to that World Junior qualifier for the 1500. So without further ado, here is my 2018 Australian Open Nationals and Commonwealth Games Trials 1500 metre heat.
Over the shorter distance, but obviously, you know what, he wants to focus on that 5,000 metres at the champs at the 12 Adam Fogg, 13 Ryan Gregson.
Alright, so coming into the home straight on the first lap, I found myself quite far towards the back of the pack. I'm in the white singlet with the orange spikes, and I knew that I kind of just had to get in and relax and try and run as fast as I could.
He has himself a beat, 3:40.60. He's out there in this race too. So they're the three athletes in this heat with the qualifiers currently. They'll be looking to get themselves safely through to the final.
Back to Reese Langdon, who's leading the catch-up pack. That's Douglas Hammerlock from Tasmania.
Coming up to 800 to go, I was still in that chasing pack, and I think I went through in about 1:48, so I knew I was going to have to close very hard to get under that World Junior qualifier.
Maybe one, we'll have to wait and see how quickly they're going through. We'll check their 800 metre split. It's looking pretty quick at the moment. I think it's a few seconds it is. Looks like a 2 minutes flat there. We'll just wait and see if the official one. 2 flat, 66. So about 3 seconds faster through the first 800 metres from the first heat. So I think we might be able to see the first 4 from this go through, but Gregson and Williams look around. Fourth sitting pretty comfortably there in that last automatic qualifying position. But the boys did enough around that bend and they'll switch it off as they come to the finish line. They should find themselves comfortably through. And again, very quick, and I think Simon Rogers might have done enough to move himself up into that fastest non-automatic time. 3:43.26, the official winning time there for Gregson. 3:43.34 for Geordie Williams. Tom Forthorpe 3:44.03. We'll wait and see the time for the 4th place athlete Simon Rogers.
Alright, so even though I only came 9th out of 13 in my heat, I was actually really happy with how it turned out. I ran 3:51 flat for the 1500, which was a PB by just over 3 seconds for me, so I'd gone from 3:54.25 down to 3:51 flat. The heat was won by Ryan Gregson, who was the favourite going in. He ran 3:43, so I was quite a long way off that. But overall, I was still really happy to have taken a big chunk off my PB, and I was slowly working my way towards that World Junior qualifier. Obviously, with that run, coming 9th out of 13 in my heat, I didn't make the final, so I didn't make the Commonwealth Games, which was not a surprise. I didn't expect to make the final. I went to the Gold Coast aiming to run fast, run a PB, and I did that. I got my PB, and in the end, Nationals in the Commonwealth Games Trials was won by Ryan Gregson, who, as I mentioned, was the favourite going into it. So he got out there and got the job done and got his qualification for the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. Anyway, following the Commonwealth Games trials, I had about a week and a half to prepare for the 2018 Queensland Under-20 State Championships, where I was just focusing on the 1500, and I pretty much saw it as my final chance to run the 3:48 1500 World Under-20 qualifier. So I went into this race with a PB of 3:51 flat from the Commonwealth Games trials, and I was really aiming to break that 3:48 to secure myself a World Under-20 qualifier. And so I went into this one really wanting to get the win and become the Queensland Under-20 State 1500 champion for 2 years running, but I was much more focused on achieving that World Junior qualifier. Also from this race, the top 3 finishers got automatic qualification to the 2018 Australian Junior Athletics Championships that were being held as the selection trials for the 2018 World Under-20 Championships that were being held in Finland in mid-2018. But I'd already run my 3:51, which was a national qualifier before this race, so I went into it not having to worry about where I finished, and I was literally just focused on running fast and trying to have a crack at the World Junior qualifier. So without further ado, here is the 2018 Queensland Under-20 1500 final. Alright, so we are underway here at the 2018 Queensland Under-20 1500 final, and I am wearing orange spikes with a white singlet, just moving up into second place behind Will Morris, my training partner. Early on in this one, we have kind of split the pack up a bit. Will Morris was going hard for the first 800. The plan was to go through in about 2:05 or 2:06, and so me and Callum Davies are on the back of Will, and that pretty much split up the whole pack fairly quickly. So we went through 400 in about 61 and then 800 just there in 2:04. Will Morris was starting to drop off, so I moved up onto his shoulder, around him and into the lead. Coming into the home straight with a lap to go, I knew that we were running fast. I didn't know exactly what we were at, but I knew that if we could close hard, then the World Junior qualifier was definitely within reach. I was very tired by this point, but I think they called out a split there at 2:51 with 1 lap to go, and at that point I pretty much just put my foot down and went for home. Alright, so after doing a lot of the work in that race from kind of 800 onwards, I crossed the line in second place behind Callum Davies, and I honestly didn't know if we'd run the World Junior qualifier or not. I actually had to ask one of the officials, and she told me that I'd run 3:49.84. So I'd taken another second off my PB. I dipped under 3:50 for the 1500, but I was still just shy of the 1500 World Junior qualifier, and when I finished that race, I thought that was it. I thought that was my final chance to run the World Junior qualifier. I had 3 weeks until Nationals, and I wasn't planning on racing again until Nationals, so I was pretty disappointed. I kind of thought I'd come so far, I'd taken a lot of time off my PB to just come up short of running that World Junior qualifier, and it wasn't until about a week later when I was talking to my parents about kind of how far I'd come, going from running a 354 down to dipping under 350 and just being shy of that World Junior qualifier, that I realised there was another chance for me to run the World Junior qualifier, and so I booked a flight to Melbourne and I registered to race in my first Vic Milers Club meet, where I got into the top 1500 race, which turned out to be one of the most competitive races in the history of Vic Milers Club. This Vic Milers race was the week before Nationals. I knew that it was definitely going to be my final chance to run that World Junior qualifier, so I set my sights on Melbourne and was hoping for a fast race.
Next week on a FOGDOG exclusive, FOGDOG heads to Melbourne for his final chance at the World Junior qualifier for the 1500 meters. FOGDOG will attempt to run the qualifier against a huge field of quality runners in what is rumored to be one of the most competitive races in the history of Vic Milers Club. Rumor has it that after hearing FOGDOG will be appearing, even the Olympic champion, Matt Centrowitz, can't keep himself away as a result of wanting to see the FOGDOG attempt the qualifier. See all of this and more next Thursday, May 28th, 7 p.m. Central Time.
Only on the FOGDOG exclusive.